Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first episode, aka the first issue of the Superhero News Roundup. Just like the bad guys, I round up the news. This is a spin-off show of Dynamic Duo. I'm going to get into all the nooks and crannies about the show. We've been talking about it for weeks. I have on other shows, if you go back to Rant, Rave, Repeat, we had talked a little bit about this and how we got to this situation. I think the best way to start off is what I want to do with this show overall is when you see that thumbnail, when you see what the main topic is to get right into it. So this is a show generally that's going to be about superhero news. Almost all the time it's going to be about superhero news. But I have a lot that I want to dive into and a lot that I want to talk about. The format of the show, how it's going to be laid out for YouTube, opposed to podcast services that we run. Because this is something that I've been thinking about, something I've been critiquing, something I've talked with other people like Kyle and the secretary, things like, oh, should I do this way, this way? So this is a show that is evolving and it's going to continue to evolve. But I'm going to tell you about that after, because what you can do now is just pretty much just use me as a prostitute. And you can just use me for this news and what I want to talk about right now and the Venom, the MCU stuff. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that probably for a little while because I want to get right into it. And then if you want to bow out, like I said, use me for the sex and then go away, that's all fine with me because I'm going to be here maybe every 2 weeks, a month, things like that, maybe every week, dropping one of these. So you can do that and then just come back. But if you want to know, if you're interested, if you're a fan of our content and you're a fan of myself, if you listen to what I talk about and then you're a fan of it, listen to the after I'm done the topic, the 20 to 30 minutes, because I'm going to be talking about what my plan is with the superhero news roundup and kind of the origins of it. So first off, let's start with a story that maybe even inspired me to start this a little earlier than I expected. And I'll get into why that is the case. But Venom in the MCU. This is such a dramatic situation. It feels like we're in high school of hearsay, she said, he said. So let's play this out. Years ago, Spider-Man comes back to Marvel in a sense that they're sharing him. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a little rundown, and then we're going to talk about the different scenarios of how Venom and the Spider-Man Sonyverse can work in the MCU, and if it's going to work, because some comments are very confusing and all over the map. So, rundown. Marvel, Sony, partnership, great. Spider-Man's in Civil War, great. Spider-Man Homecoming, great. Iron Man's there, perfect. So years and years ago, actually when it first happened, Spider-Man 3 happened, and then, because Venom was popular, they announced they're doing a Venom movie. Nothing ever came of it, and then there's announcements all the time throughout the past, probably decades, since that movie happened, like, oh, we're starting to make it. And then about last year at some time, you heard those rumblings again, and then earlier this year, it was like, yeah, we're making it, and I think the date popped up, and that's what clicked for everybody, like, hey, like, they're threatening us with this Venom movie. And to me, at the time, and who knows now, but at the time it was still, this Venom movie's not connected, it's going to be a solo thing. I don't get into why that's a bad thing, but it's going to be a solo thing. And it got further along. We got a director and Ruben Fleischer. We got Tom Hardy. We got a confirmation that's going to be rated R, which we haven't done in a while. But at the time, the confirmation that was rated R seemed like they were spending on their own. And like I said, I am going to talk about the solo universe as well, or the Spider-Man Sonyverse as well, with Black Cat and Silver Sable. So there's all these things happening where like, they're actually going through with this. And then you have that confirmation from Kevin Feige of, yeah, this is not a part of it. This is its own thing. It's not in the MCU. Even John Watts came out and said like, oh, Venom, they're doing their own thing. That's not in our universe. So right away, and like I said, I don't know if you're a new time listener, or if you're listening for the first time, I'll be clear that I thought that was a terrible idea. I thought that movie would have bombed. I thought that movie would be one of those Green Lantern fan four sticks where it's like, man, remember when they tried to make that Venom movie? Because one, Sony's not been on the biggest role, not even with Spider-Man movies, just in general. Two, I am in that camp of, yes, it's all about the story, and you could make something great, but Venom needs to spawn from Spider-Man. And lots of people even throw out like, oh, let's say with his Joker. I can see the Joker going off and doing his own movie. Like, And that's almost a little like he had assistance from Batman, but that's kind of what happened in Suicide Squad. And you know why? Because you can afford those situations because the Joker's been been around a long time, and he's had so many iterations and he's had so many versions that it's like, okay, here's a Joker, pick up and run, and that's what Suicide Squad kind of did. Um, but they didn't need to establish he's an enemy of Batman. We knew that. The most mainstream people know about Batman and Joker. I do think a lot of mainstream people know that Venom and Spider-Man are one the same, and they could make that jump of like, oh, he has his own movie. But you need that classic story and you need that classic movie. Now, with all these rumors, it still doesn't look like we're going to get that, and we'll come into that after. But I was in that camp of this is not going to work without Spider-Man. At least, just even if it was the one and done, do one Spider-Man and Venom movie, and then find a way to spin off, and then let him go do his own things, or the symbiote do its own things. I do not think without that story, it's so crucial, and it's just stuff that you're going to have to change and stuff that I don't want to see. I don't want some ham-fisted reason about why he has the powers of Spider-Man, or maybe not the powers of Spider-Man. Maybe there's some people that are Agent Venom fans out there. I am not. We got the Punisher for that. He's a badass, and yeah, it's a cool gimmick, I think, for the comic to be like, oh, if he stays, he's a hurt vet, the suit gives him the ability to walk again, but if he stays in too long, he's Venom. That's cool for the comics, and that could even be something in a film down the line, but we've not got a real good, true adaptation of Venom, and before he can go off and do his own shit, we need that. So, that happens. All this confirming it's not a part. Fans are I think the majority of fans are very sad and very confused and very worried. Just totally took the D off that word. So then it's in some press junket or something like that. This is not news. If you're watching this show, this is not news to you. Amy Pascal, producer of Sony. I think she was the head of Sony Entertainment at one point for their films. Who knows? But she's a part of the Spider-Man movies. She is a producer, and she is known for maybe speaking off the cuff because she was the one that dropped the bombshell of, hey, Spider-Man and Marvel only have like a 4-picture deal. Like, it was after Spider-Man, the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, it's done, and Spider-Man could be off on his own. We didn't know that at all. We didn't know how long this, of course, a deal would have an end, but we didn't know, was it a 10-year thing, was it a 20-year thing, was it a certain amount of films, and she confirmed that, that was another thing that, was that the smartest move? Should she have said that? Was she saying that to play, some type of game to try and help Sony continue this relationship with Marvel, or get an upper hand on them? Very much like these comments, because just to talk about the comments, because unfortunately when we did a dynamic duo, this last superhero news roundup for the team one that the whole group of us did, we talked about the Venom situation. This was 2 days before that happened. So this happens. She says, I'm not going to read the quote. She says that they're in the same universe, they're adjacent to the Spider-Man ones, and there's a chance that Tom Holland could be in these movies. Much to the chagrin of Kevin Feige, who's just like there's some great videos out there. The Curb Your Enthusiasm one is the best one out there. But it was strange. It was kind of deflating in a way, because you see the headlines first and you get really excited. And when you see that, you don't know what to think, and you really don't know what to think when literally a week before she says this, Kevin Feige's going, nope, it's not a thing. And she's going, yep, they're in the same universe. So here's a couple scenarios I want to play out. One, which I don't think is the case, but you never know in this business. She just threw it out there as a kind of like a fuck you, like, hey, these movies are going to be a part of Marvel. And he's like, what? Like, that's not exactly what this relationship is like. Like, we'll take care of Spider-Man in his movies, but we don't want the other ones, and is this a way of her kind of forcing that upon them? I don't think so, but you never know. 2, she just made a mistake and doesn't know really the continuity, and we've seen with other Spider-Man movies, they're not the greatest at continuity and world building, so she doesn't know. She just thinks, oh, other people are making these Spider-Man movies, they're gonna be a part of this, but not really. So maybe she made a mistake, and that's why Feige had that face, because you know what, everyone's of course reading into her face. It could just be nothing. I don't know, the reaction seemed off, and something about this whole situation seems off, and I want everyone to get excited for a Venom film, for a Silver Black film, for, some spin-offs that they talked about. I want people to get excited if you love these characters, but I don't want you to get 100%. even go 95, I don't want to get 100, and this is what I'm going to talk about in a bit here, is something still seems off. So like I said, those were those few scenarios. One, or the third would be, she is misspeaking in the way of she understands the universe. Maybe it's the same thing as a mistake, so it's a different version of a mistake. She understands that Spider-Man is in the Marvel universe, and when she's talking about these movies are in that universe or adjacent to it, maybe she just means the Spider-Man portion. So we could see Tom Holland verse off against Tom Hardy, but you're not going to see Tom Hardy in the Avengers. You're not going to see whoever plays Black Cat in the Avengers. And Kevin Feige could make that face, because he could be... That's a good reason for him being like, oh, like, I understand what she's saying, but you're giving the fans the wrong idea. You know, you're setting expectations too high. So that's what I'm hoping. The fourth option, and I think there's a fifth one somewhere in this mind, but the fourth option was that maybe this was going to be a surprise. Maybe this was going to be something from Comic-Con, something that, because John Watts has talked about a end credit scene, and like, you don't want to miss it. They're gonna say that with all of them. They want you to stay and see these, so it could just be nothing. It could just be fucking Spider-Man getting another spider watch on the wall. But he stressed it, so you never know. What if it was something to do with the symbiote? What if symbiote is from the next Guardians or Infinity War? What if Secret Wars is the title for Avengers 4? So what is it? What if it is the same? Because the other comment that Kevin Feige said, which I think a few months ago, I don't know if it was him, but someone from Marvel team, and I thought it was him, said they were talking about radar films and just something quick like, that's not what we see, that's not anything we're interested in right now. You know, that's nothing we want to do. And this newest answer they gave about radar films, it's not a, yeah, it's in the books, but it was a, you know, oh, we'd consider it. It sounded very much more optimistic of like, yeah, we would play with the idea. What better way to play with the idea than, hey, Disney's not necessarily going to want to throw rated R on these movies, because one, it's Disney, they have their own separate studio to do those rated R movies. You don't see Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, you don't see them slapping a rated R rating on any of them, and I don't think they want to, and I don't think they ever will. This is a way to kind of feed both masters in a way, because you can keep Disney happy by, look, we got Spider-Man, he's in here, more toys, more selling in the movies, more posters, more whatever, more hype. You get to do the Spider-Man Disney factor, and you can also help out the fans by saying, man, we'd really like to see something different. We'd really like to see something radar, like a Deadpool and Logan, you know, those huge successes. We'd like to see something like that in the MCU. This is a way that they could do it, because if they say, hey, Venom is a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's rated R, and they're producing it, maybe they have some creative control. This is a way of kind of doing a backdoor rated R movie without having to go through Disney, because it's going to be developed and it's going to be distributed through a different company, with Sony being the company. So, and it's a good thing of, if it works, hey, maybe Disney opens their eyes and say, maybe we might play with the idea of doing a rated R movie. I don't think they ever will, but maybe it does. Or if it bombs, they go, oh, it's just, you know, it's a Sony one, that wasn't us, you know, like, you don't got to worry about that. So there's many scenarios here, and my biggest thing is when I go back to that first prediction, or the first thought, not prediction, the first thought about her being, you know, a little conniving and maybe saying something she shouldn't, or saying something to gain upper ground. I don't think that is true, but it plays to an issue that I hope that Homecoming comes out, if it's successful, everyone's going to be happy. My worry is that Sony's going to take the win, and they'll be like, oh, we're back on track with our Spider-Man movies. And I hope they don't forget what got them there. And that's Kevin Feige, that's Disney, that's MCU, that's their team that got them there. So I hope they don't do, and some people are worried about, like, after Spider-Man Homecoming 2, like, whatever the sequel will be, that'll happen, and then it's like, oh, we're going to take Spider-Man back, and then we'll put him in these films, like, retroactively. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. So my biggest worry and concern is that whether it is a mistake, whether it's her being conniving, whether it's her revealing something she shouldn't have, that they have different visions. And I do think they have different visions. I don't know what the Sony Spider-Verse is going to mean to MCU. And I have a couple options we can talk about. The very first and the happiest option is that it was a plan. It's something that maybe they didn't even plan from the beginning of doing, but maybe it's something that they talked about. And hey, you know what? We're liking this partnership. Let's incorporate the Venom, storyline, or whatever your Spider-Verse characters. Let's incorporate them. Or it was a plan. They're just playing coy, because like I said, Kevin Feige was talking about a rated R movie. Maybe he had this in mind of like, you know what, we could do that with Venom, and we could do that with this. Like, maybe we should, because the second they go make that Venom movie, the triggers pull. And if it's not in the MCU, I guess they could retroactively fit it in somehow. But what happens if a building gets destroyed and the Avengers aren't there? There's certain things that could happen in a Venom or any other Sony Spider-Verse movies that you could be fucked. And it's gone. So this is a good way to pull back and say, hey, wait a second. Let's talk and let's figure this out. So I hope this is what happened. So either way, whether they did it from day one, which I don't think so, or they figure it out, let's just say they're 100% in the MCU and they're combined like anything else, like an Ant-Man, like a Black Panther, like a Doctor Strange. They are going to be connected somehow, have some crossover. And I'm not talking Spider-Man, I'm talking the other films. You have multiple options. Like I said, you have an end credit scene in Thor Ragnarok. You have the scene in, like I said, Infinity War. You can have Secret Wars set that up. It does seem a little soon for Spider-Man to get his black suit. And this is the thing that it's strange where this Venom movie is going to take place. And the thing with anything Marvel's doing right now, other than Fox, is everything, all these questions we have, I do think will be answered at the end of Infinity War, at the end of Avengers 4. Because there's so much what do we do about contracts, this character, this storyline, this franchise, where's it all going? Venom comes out, October next year? So Infinity War will be out by then. There could be an inkling of something, and maybe they just do... I could see actually them having a quick scene of, and Tom Holland said it's not true, but a quick scene of Spider-Man they just do a mini Infinity War or Secret Wars while Spider-Man's up in space. They don't do the thing where he comes back down to Earth and he still has the costume and he's a little mean. They could literally make it a one movie thing where, hey, Spider-Man's in space with Tony Stark, he's fighting people, he gets this goop, they don't know how to get off, but he feels alright, but as the movie progresses, he gets worse and worse. You get to see the effects, they rip it off because you got Banner there, you got Stark there, you got Strange, you could find some way to get this fucking thing off him. So they get off and somehow it's connected to the ship, and then it still has his DNA and everything like that, which is, I don't know. See, this is people that are like big time fanboys. I guess that, because what would you do with a Venom that attaches to the Peter Parker that doesn't shoot webs out of his wrist? Something I've never thought about. I gotta look into that. And if you know, let me know in the comments below, because I've read a lot of comics and I've been reading them my whole life. It's hard to, one, obtain all the knowledge, and two, read everything. And that's something that I don't think I've ever come across and been like, hey, what if it is a Spider-Man which is web shooters, does Venom still have that web? And maybe that's how they get across like some sort of like, oh yeah, he has powers, but he's not really Spider-Man. Don't do that. You need the symbol. But either way, it attaches Peter Parker, it gets the powers, and then it can come down, and then it just goes off on its own adventure. And then maybe once Venom has his own movie, they could do a Venom versus Spider-Man thing. Venom's getting more angry as the franchises go on. He's getting more out of control. He's not an anti-hero. He's turning into a villain. Spider-Man / Tom Holland is there to stop him. That's the way I hope they do it, and if it is in the MCU, they will have it all planned out. Because if it's not, I don't want a Venom movie of just Tom. I don't want Agent Venom at all. I don't want Venom running around with guns. I don't want him to be a vet. I want Eddie Brock, the true Venom. So I don't want just a movie about this guy who gets attached to a symbiote and then Spider-Man come in a couple movies later, or they explain away in a few lines. That's the tricky thing, and that's where there's some spin-offs too that they talked about that I'm like, that could be tricky. And that's the end of the day where it's hard for me to trust Sony. And they've not, other than that Pascal comment, they've not really been too clear about what the full-on plans are. The good thing it was Spider-Man Homecoming coming out. I hope that a lot of the interviews with Kevin Feige could be pre-done, so they were interviewed before this. I hope there's at least a good chunk of interviews that come after this, because I want people to hit him as hard as possible. Be nice about it, but I want, hey, a full-on clarification. Amy said this. What does this mean? Did this factor in your plans? Was it something, new? Because Feige, of course, he doesn't come out and say, hey, Thanos is going to kill Captain America in the next movie. No, but he drops hints or says things that are important, and he is a truthful guy, I think. Like, I don't want him to reveal their grand master plan. That's for them to unveil on us. But stuff like, hey, with Phase 4, we don't know if it's called Phase 4. We don't know what it is exactly yet. That's just enough to be, okay, like, they have a plan, but they don't know if it fits to this model that they have right now. So we need some clarification on that. But that would be one that, hey, it's just 100% planned. They talked about it MCU style. Let's go. Venom's in there. Venom's going to be in Thunderbolts. You'll see him fighting the Hulk. I hope that is the full-on option, because I think that also could rein Sony in and be like, hey, before you make that fucking Mysterio spinoff, like, hold back a second, you know, like, let's talk. Because in some report that came out today that Sony is distributing the movie, they're producing the movie, you know, I think who knows how much money they make, but they're putting all the costs up for the movie. But Marvel and Kevin Feige and the majority of those people had the majority of the creative control, which is what I want them to continue to have. So I hope that's the plan. So that's scenario one, perfect world. This podcast is about why it's not a perfect world. So here's your second option that I think is most likely now that this has been said, unless there's some backtracking of like, hey, she made a mistake, she wasn't supposed to say that, she didn't know what she was talking about. They wouldn't say it as carelessly as that, but they connect it to the MCU Netflix style. And you know what that means, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. style. It's in the same universe, there are mentions, and it's tangibly connected, like it is by a few mentions, by an article, by a news frame. It is very cagey, like it's not, they blur the lines in a way of like, yeah, Daredevil is in the MCU, okay, they've talked about the incident and, you know, the Shatari, and they've made jokes about Captain America and Thor and all this business. So it's there, but you still get this question of, hey, why didn't Tony Stark go get Luke Cage when he got Spider-Man, you know? He needs this help with the Civil War, like, and take the storyline reasons out, but it's like, this guy can get shot with bullets, and he can throw cars around and throw people thousands of feet up in the air carelessly because he's super strong. And I get it, there's all these other reasons. You can say, oh, he didn't find them, blah, blah, blah. But you got someone like Luke Cage who is walking around. There's news articles about him. He's a hero in that community. He's like a icon now after what he did. So it's like, why wouldn't, like, shouldn't you be interested in this? Because you're watching this kid that's Spider-Man, you know? So it'll be in that way that is loosely connected. And I think that is, if we are getting a connection, that is the biggest way I think we're going to get. And it's going to be bigger than Netflix, because we've yet to have a Thor, a Black Widow, a Hawkeye, an Iron Man, a Cap pop up in any of the Defender series, solo or team-ups, whatever they're going to be. They're not going to be around. As of right now, they keep saying. So Sony would already have a leg up, because I think Tom Holland will appear in these movies. I think Tom Holland's going to be around for a while, which I like. I know some people really want Miles. You're going to get Miles at some point. Marvel's great at planning. I think you'll get Peter for, hopefully, in my opinion, I hope it's 6 movies, so we can really build up our connection with Tom Holland, and then when he does pass away or die, or they write him off somehow and Miles comes in, we actually feel that and don't rush it. That was my problem with everyone being like, oh, Miles. Like, we miss out on that payoff of him taking up for Peter and Peter being his Uncle Ben. I want to see that. So it could be connected Netflix style, but a little bit better because you'll have Tom Holland around. I think you could have all the movies connected to Spider-Man's world and his life and his movies, but not to the MCU. Like I said, you could see Tom Hardy versus Tom Holland in a movie, but you're not going to see Venom facing off against Thor. You're not going to see him in a major crossover. He is going to be technically in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, when they talk about Venom, like, oh yeah, he's a character in that pocket. And she did say these films are adjacent to the other ones. So that would make sense in a way of connecting them, of, yeah, they are in that universe, but it's kind of just a by name, by association. You know, it's like if you, back in the day, there's this hot chick or this hot guy, and you're like, oh yeah, I know him. Like, we have this same science class, and we talk all the time, and we compare science notes, and it's great, you know. Like, that's the way Sony will be, because they can still rub off of the MCU's success, and kind of go with the flow and rake in that goodwill, because the second I heard Venom was connected to the MCU, or potentially, that made me do a complete 180. I've gone back a bit degrees because of certain things that have been said, and just I'm waiting for more phrasing on it. But even then, I'm more excited if this is the fact. And Kevin Feige had that face. At the end of the day, he did do an awkward smile. I'm hoping that just was, he was caught off guard, and that smile was confirmed. Like, yeah, we're doing this. Like, this is great. Not just a, oh, what the fuck did you do? You ruined it. So let's just take that and say it is connected. Even in a Netflix way, I'm happy. I don't need to see Venom, Vulture, Doc Ock fight the Avengers, or be Sinister Six versus Avengers. That would be fucking sick, but I don't need to see that. I want to see Spider-Man interact with those characters. Those characters need them. It's the same way that, we're going to shelve that conversation for a second. I'm going to bring it up. We're going to get back to it. So there's that. Then there's, it's not planned, it's just a label. This is like the Netflix style, but even worse, where maybe you'll get just a headline in the back newspaper. Maybe not even that, just say, yeah, it's somewhere in the universe. When I do say Netflix style, I think the movies would be a little bit more connected to that. This to me is, it's not planned, it's very rushed, and it's like, yeah, they're in the same universe, but not really, in a way that Marvel could look at it as like, the redhead stepchild, of like, oh, like, yeah, like, they're a part of the family, but not really, like, we invite them to Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that's about it, just because, they have our same last name, Marvel, that is when the first thing with being with Netflix and being kind of connected, Marvel could, and even with this, Sony could go out, make a great Venom movie, and then Marvel can be like, oh yeah, it's connected. We love Venom. We love what they did there. And you love Venom, and you're buying all those t-shirts and toys. Guess what? He's going to be fighting the Hulk in the next movie. It's going to be great. I think at the beginning, you could see this, where it's just a label. You get very minor connections, but it's just to make people happy and not really show it off, not to have, and I'm not counting Spider-Man being in those films, because that's great, and I guess that does connect it, but I'm saying, like, you don't even hear any talks of anything else, like, when I mean just the label. Netflix version is still, you'll hear a lot of talking, like, I don't count this as Venom if they're saying, oh, we saw Spider-Man. No, don't count that, because that's in the Spider-Man Homecoming universe. They're kind of using Tom Holland as a buffer because they still own him and they can do that. Being connected to Spider-Man and being connected to the MCU are very two different things. If it's connected to Spider-Man, anything they do MCU can kind of be like, they're not really part of us, or they're kind of like these side things that don't play into our world, If they're in the MCU, that means certain things have a reaction. Certain things that characters do or introduce, that's going to have an effect on Avengers or whatnot. And not a huge effect. At the end of the day, Daryl's fighting ninjas in Hell's Kitchen all the time. Not a big effect, maybe none at all. So they can easily get away with it. And I think there is a portion of maybe Marvel and the MCU and Kevin Feige that don't want this relationship. Good water. Water, folks. This is the best thing in the world. I don't know if they can trust them to go off on their own. That's why I need more comments. Because if it's like hey, Marvel is controlling these films, has some stake in them, I can believe they'll be great, and I believe they'll have a path to go on. If it's hey, Sony's producing, writing, directing, they have all the creative control on these spin-off movies, as Kevin Feige and Marvel, I would not want my name attached to that till they prove themselves. And that's maybe the feeling I got of, like, they could have been like, hey, let's talk about what we could do. Nothing's official, and then Amy comes out and be like, yeah, we're a thing, like, no, like, check with me before you make us Facebook official, like, don't just put that on there, like, we should talk about it, like, are we officially a couple? That's what I feel. Out of all these options, Kevin Feige and Amy conversation could have been that there's talks, because there was talks of Amazing Spider-Man joining the Avengers a long time ago, or not even joining, but they had rumblings of conversations before, because there was talks about putting, I can't remember, I think it was the Oscorp Tower in Avengers or the Avengers in Oscorp. Either way, it was something that only because of time constraints, it didn't happen. So they've been flirting for a while with this. But the question is, do they want a whole nother kind of sister universe like the Netflix? Or do they just want Spider-Man and some of their villains? Do they want Spider-Man to interact with the Avengers? And I think they kind of want just the Spider-Man thing, especially with Sony's track record. Amazing Spider-Man, I think most people like it, but I still think it's kind of a split down the middle movie. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was an abomination, and it wasn't even the sense of it's a bad movie. It is bad in the sense of the world building and the whole Easter eggs and the setting up a universe and a cinematic universe. I think that's what would scare Marvel and Kevin Feige the most, is seeing that and being like, oof, like, they did that and they tried to set up all these films which they want to now, which we're about to get into. So I need to hear more, and that's why I say, like, we can all get excited. There's other announcements here that we're going to talk about that we can get excited about, but I will not get to that 100% level till I have clarification on a few things. And I think you should be the same. Like, just wait. There's a lot of posts, like, we're going to get into it. Carnage is supposedly the villain, or going to be in Spider-Man Venom. It's just going to be in Venom. That's exciting. That's great. If it's just the label and it's not really connected, I'm very happy to see Tom Hardy play Venom. And I'm very happy to see Carnage. Two great characters, two of my favorites. Yeah, people make jokes like, oh, 90s kids and 90s, like, oh, you're so badass, like in those characters. They're cool characters. Get over it. They both have very cool characteristics, stories, and there's a reason why they're so popular. And their looks great. Their powers are great. They're a great foil for Peter Parker. So I am on that train of, man, I cannot wait to see a Venom and Carnage movie. But the same thing, I still think we need the Spider-Man. So I'm going to go into what I kind of spun me to talk about this, because I want to talk about those comments because they are very interesting. But then Hollywood Reporter had you guys are listening to this, an article come out a couple days ago. I'm going to start off right in the middle. They're talking about all this stuff about this past of Spider-Man and how they're working with Marvel, Sony is, and everything like that. So, as for expansion plans, Tom Hardy is starring in Venom, dated October 5th, 2018. Not that far away. Which will also feature the villain Carnage. I'm going to stop there. Like I said, love Carnage. She's a great villain, maybe a top 10 villain. I love how sadistic he is, how cool he is, like as far as look-wise, and what they can do with his powers and his character. I think he is one of your better comic book villains because he has a notable character. You can describe him. There's lots of people out there that even if you said, hey, describe Ronan to me, describe even Thanos to you sometimes. You have to be a big fan of it. Like, oh, he's a big, dark, brooding guy. You know, he wants to be very powerful. He's obsessed with being power and having the upper hand. You know, there's certain things you can talk about, but I don't think it's like Carnage where, yeah, it's a simple character, but they do it in a fun, creative way, and it's ties to Peter Parker and it's ties to Venom. I'm very excited for that. I don't know if they should do it for the first film. And I honestly don't, because this is what makes me worry of they're going to do. And this is the other thing. Could they do a Venom film and then do, like, in one of the Spider-Man sequels, like, it'd be a prequel to the Venom movie? I guess, but I don't really want that. I want to see the Venom and Spider-Man movie first, or something spin off from the Spider-Man movie. Carnage being the villain makes me worry that it could be really messy really quick. I think it could be like, oh, Eddie Brock has a symbiote, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's split off. It's gone to the psycho serial killer guy, blah, blah, blah. Which, you know, Cletus Cassidy has a very fucked up story. Go look into his backstory. That's what's exciting about Radar. But I think that Venom, you need to, and let's say if it's not connected to the Spider-Man movie, I think you need to really hit home on him first. And I worry, and this is why I'm still worried about this, and I'm still worried about Sony. This screams to me Spider-Man 3 where, hey, Sam Raimi, I don't know if it was an actual quote, but Avi Arad, I think how you say his name, went to Sam Raimi like, hey, you know, people really like Venom. Like, we could, like, they pitched putting Venom in the movie as like a markable thing instead of a good story thing. And this is my worry that they're like, hey, everyone loves Venom. You know what else who people love? Carnage. Let's throw him in there. Let's get it in there. Let's do this. And there's other announcements that make me worry about that. So I'm a fan of Carnage. I'm happy he'll be in there. It'll be cool to see live on screen. I want them both to look actually great. I thought the Venom and Spider-Man 3 was pretty meh. So I want them to look very much close to their roots. Visually, fight scenes and Carnage alone could be very cool and one of your top comic book like fight scenes or even performances, because Cletus Cassidy is a fucking psycho, and maybe one day we'll talk about some fan casts I'd love to do. But I'm a fan of Carnage. I think they should have waited. I think they should have set Venom up first in his own movie. First, some minor Spider-Man villain, make him first, I guess, mobsters or something like that, because he's gonna be anti-hero, something, and then bring up the Carnage, the second dose. Like it's kind of like Terminator to me in a weird way. Like I guess Venom in this time technically, Terminator in the first one was a bad guy. This is gonna be Venom as a good guy, but still that way of set Venom up, shows power, shows ability, and then the next one shows this like kind of better version of Venom, like the T1000 to the T800. So. But that's a big thing. That's the thing that'll sell posters. People will be excited. I'm even excited about it. Even in a way of me being like, oof, I don't know if you should pull the trigger right away. That gets me excited. A source says Holland is contractually obligated to do Spider-Man 2 and 3, but the intention is to bring him in spin-off and possibly other Marvel films. He is currently shooting Marvel Infinity Wars. So that gives me a little bit of hope of, we already talked about the Holland and Spider-Man stuff. That gives me hope that they've talked to Marvel, and there's gonna, because they say, and possibly other Marvel films. I like that. Hopefully, there's a dialogue of, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Holland said, Marvel's good working around your schedule. They're very respectful for your life. They understand you have to work on other movies. They try to fix it up as soon as so you can work. Okay, so this was the and there's a few things here I'm not gonna read because I think they're a little spoilery. Homecoming's not out. Here's one of the biggest things. This will probably reel us down a bit and why I'm still concerned. Another spin-off, Silver and Black, doesn't have a release date, but is eyeing a fall shoot and features characters Silver, Sable, and Black Cat. We knew that. Other projects will focus on Kraven, Hunter, and Mysterio. The idea says a studio source is to build out the world gradually rather than launch one immediately. They have been trying with Spider-Man film ensemble Sinister Six, which has been shelved. Okay, so I like that. I like that Sinister Six is shelved because, one, don't rush it. You need to set up those characters. Two, I don't know if we need that movie. Even when they talk about Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was like, eesh, that's not needed. I don't think it's still needed. Put those characters out, and maybe if people are clamoring for it, then go. And this is the thing that I was going to talk about earlier. So this whole thing, it's been worded different in other ways. Of other projects will focus on Kraven the Hunter Mysterio. Is that them conjoined in another movie? Is that them in the Silver and Black movie? Is that them in Spider-Man sequels? Because one, I guess Kraven could carry his own film. I don't really see it right off the bat. And Mysterio, I do not see it at all. They'd make it maybe some goofy comedy. They're the exact same as Venom. They are so tied to Spider-Man, I need to see them with Spider-Man first. I do not understand. You need to get this through your head. If they are planning spin-offs for fucking Mysterio, who I love, maybe one of my favorite villains, just from look-wise, that fishbowl motherfucker, I could rant on and on about how much I love him as a character. He's a fun character. It's a good idea to have him as a Spider-Man minor villain, a villain, whatever you want to do. And if you could do Kraven, you could do Mysterio. To me, who are both perfect candidates for Spider-Man 2 and 3. They did Vulture. They've kind of, not officially, but they've made it seem like they want to do villains that haven't been on the big screen yet or done that well or even done, I could see them doing something like an Electro down the line and looking completely different. I think they're going to do ones that are, I do think for the most part, though, they will stick to ones that we haven't seen. There's a lot we haven't seen. Next to Batman, Spider-Man is the best rogues gallery. Kraven and Mysterio seem like two natural fits in Spider-Man. And if this is their case of, hey, we're going to do this and spin that off, great. If they just start with this Mysterio movie, there's a reason the MCU started with their heavy hitters. And yes, I know Iron Man, Cap, Thor were not the biggest heavy hitters until the movies came out. They were big. They're all, maybe some A, like Hulk was an A, Cap America was A, B to C rate characters. With Black Widow and Hawkeye, and I love Hawkeye, but people didn't know them. They weren't your Batmans, they weren't your Supermans. They weren't your Spider-Mans, they weren't your Wolverines. They started with the ones that they thought were the most recognizable, something like Iron Man, who maybe was kind of a higher C-rate character. I don't think so, but some people are describing as that. They took him because they thought he had a good story. But really, if you look at the Avengers, if you look at what Marvel had by giving away Fantastic Four and X-Men and Spider-Man and even a Blade or a Daredevil, The characters that they had left, they took the ones, the Hulk, the Thor, the Captain America, they took the ones that were the biggest and had the biggest following from comic book fans and the mainstream fans, and did those ones first. And they could do those as solo films. You have things like Ant-Man, and you have things like Doctor Strange, and you have things like Black Panther, and even Spider-Man Homecoming. Two of those started in a Marvel MCU movie to spin off of. The other two are ones that were afforded a chance because of the success of the MCU. We don't know what the success is with the Spider-Man Homecoming universe. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a success. And yeah, they could look at that and be like, okay, great, get that Mysterio movie going. But there's a reason people like Black Panther was introduced in Civil War. There's a reason Ant-Man had fucking Avengers all over his posters and even had Falcon in there. You know, there's a reason they use these characters. Even with Doctor Strange, they use that a little only because Cumberbatch is a big star and looked different enough. I think that people that didn't like superhero movies would go see it. But even just dropping lines in the trailers like, oh, the Avengers, you know, they handle Earth threats and we handle world or universe threats. They bought the right to do that, or Guardians of the Galaxy. Sony has definitely not bought the right to do a Mysterio movie by itself. What would that be? A struggling fucking magician VFX guy just working his way through life? And that's the way I would view it, that they'd be some fucking like woof comedy, you know, some stand up, have a good time, like, oh, he's trying to make it and he's gonna rob banks, and it would be like I don't know, like a Danny McBride playing Mysterio. And that's no offense to Danny McBride, but it's like, that's not what I want. I want these characters in Spider-Man, and that's why between the wording of Venom in the MCU and between Carnage getting thrown in there, which I think is great, but a move that could just be like, hey, people love Carnage, put Carnage in there. Yeah. Silver and Black, that one I think could go either way. I want to see Black Cat with Spider-Man. That one I kind of understand. They have the sexual tension, you know, very, very like playing on the like horny schoolboy aspect. That's fine if they don't do that. They could go do their own adventures. They could cross them over at some point, and maybe they don't want to do that Tom Holland, like these little like makeout sessions on a rooftop. I get that, so that's fine. Kraven and Mysterio, I know Kraven can maybe make a good movie, but I don't think you put Kraven Hunter on the poster and you get a lot of people flocking to see that I don't even know, you couldn't even cast unless you cast so-and-so, because there's no one that's a huge box office draw anymore. So I am excited, and I'm a bit more optimistic about the Sonyverse being with the MCU. But I cannot help to stop and wait a second to see how it all plays out. Because at the end of the day, I always feel like it's one step forward, two steps back. They announced all that stuff about Venom. I'm not that excited. Hey, Tom Hardy's in it, and it's going to be rated R. Okay, one step. No, MCU. None of that. It's going to be just on its own. Okay, two steps back. Oh, it's connected. Okay, this is awesome. That means, like, we're going to work together and make the Spider-Man universe and the Marvel universe in sync. We're going to get to see Spider-Man versus off against all his villains and his rogues. Here we go. And then, okay, we're making a mistake. If this is what... The wording's strange, but let's say if it is, we're planning on making a Mysterio movie and a Kraven movie to lead up to the Sinister Six. Again, I think they're looking at the wrong things with Spider-Man. They are not looking at, hey, how can we build Spider-Man's universe up to feel complete? I think it's, hey, what characters do you think we could pull from the Spider-Man universe to make a few bucks? That's what a Kraven solo movie feels like to me, and that's what a Mysterio movie feels like to me. You do Kraven v Spider-Man, not the title, but you do that, you do the Hunt storyline. People love Kraven. They want to see that movie. Great, go do it. But you need to test this out. And even then, when they're like, oh, you know, like there's rumors that the plan is still at some point do Sinister Six. Like, don't be building to that yet. I think it's great to build to something like Infinity War, or I hope DC's going to be doing that. And they could set that goal of, okay, we want to build to Sinister Six, but don't do it in the way that's going to hurt Spider-Man, because let's say they do that. Venom, and let's say, like I said, there's this weird connection where it's not really connected, they're doing their own things. Black Cat, who, okay, I'll give a pass, but Black Cat you can't use in a Spider-Man movie. Venom you can't use in a Spider-Man movie. I mean, Mysterio and Kraven you couldn't use in a Spider-Man movie. You're using a lot of the rogues that people really like, and you're using them in a way that I think does not complement the characters. You're using a way that's going to damage them in a way that doesn't really make sense. So it's interesting to see. I think they need to use those characters to help Spider-Man and not to help themselves. Because at the end of the day, if it helps Spider-Man, I think it would help everybody. There's some other news that they said that Downey's not going to be coming back for Spider-Man 2, whatever that title will be, and it'll be a different MCU character. So that seems to be, even if this deal extends, I think that's good to know that for every time Spider-Man will be in a Marvel movie, we'll get an MCU character over there. I don't know who it could be. Honestly, I really don't. I like the thought of it. I don't know, because, yeah, there's a part of me that goes, man, I wish it was just like Spider-Man doing his own solo thing. But at the end of the day, we have 5 movies of those. Not all are great, not all are good, and there's some bad ones. But at the end of the day, we got 5 of him doing his solo thing, pretty much. Who could appear out of them? It's going to be tough because you start with Downey. So anyone that you put in there is going to feel like a little step down. But did they use Iron Man as the big kickoff? Did they use Iron Man to kick the door down and go, okay, this is the partnership, and then you'll get Black Widow, or you'll get Hawkeye, which is great, and I love those characters, but it does not compare to Iron Man. So, if I had to predict, off the cuff, who could it be? I am thinking. I did not just use that as a water break, as you might think. I want to say Cap, but I feel like Cap's gonna die. So, for some reason, I'm gonna go Bruce Banner to the Hulk. I think I could see them using Banner and Hulk wisely somehow in a Spider-Man movie. I don't know, because I'd have to see the villains. Maybe there's something like a Rhino, a real good Rhino, not, oh, I'm the Rhino, not Paul Giamatti or Rhino. Someone for Hulk to fight, be bigger. So that's my prediction. I think Hulk's going to be around. I actually wonder if they can do that. So I might take that back. But with Hulk, because they have this thing where they can put him in Marvel films, but they can't distribute just they couldn't just make Hulk movie because they have to share distributing rights with someone else. So maybe they couldn't do that. If they can't do that, I'll take that out. My wish, my big time wish, they would never do, is Daredevil. They have such a good dynamic. Let's see, out of who's left? Ant-Man. Ant-Man's a possibility. That could be some fun. Don't think Doctor Strange. I don't think Black Panther. So you know what? I think if the Hulk is not allowed, I'll go with Ant-Man, Paul Rudd. He fits that tone. You could do some fun things. Spider-Man and Ant-Man together. So that's who I think. Yeah, and that's about it. I wanted to rant and rave a little bit about Cheap Plug. Go check that show out. But I want to talk about why I'm excited, why I'm not excited, why you shouldn't be excited just quite yet. This is a situation that in this show I think I'm going to be talking about a lot. I hope in the weeks leading up to Spider-Man, we get to hear more about this situation because I think there's a lot of ways it could play out. And I honestly just hope it plays out in a way that we're all happy about. That it doesn't come in a way that, like I said before, we're just getting a Venom movie and that's by itself, and that's strange. So I don't think there's anything else I want to add on that. So if you enjoyed this and you're going to bow out, I thank you very much for that. I don't think there's anything I'm trying to think. I feel like there's one little nugget I want to add more on the Venom situation, but it's going to be a turning wheel. I'm very excited to see what happens. I'll end on a positive. Tom Hardy is perfect casting for Eddie Brock / Venom, and all I want to see is Tom Holland versus Tom Hardy. I want to see that. I want this to be handled well. So I hope in the weeks leading up we will get to hear a final thing about this. We'll get to hear a confirmed conclusion of yes, this is the plan, or yes, we're doing this, but it's kind of varied, or no, this is not how it's happening. So thank you very much for tuning into that portion. For a little preview, my main topics will kind of be like that sometimes. they'll be maybe a bit closer to the date when it actually happened because the show will be up and running. But I'm usually have the main topics and a bunch of little ones. Sometimes it won't be that long because there's so much crammed. And like every day it seems like we're learning more and more about the Spider-Man situation and Venom situation. So I'm sure even by the time this comes out, if there's something huge, I will re-record another portion of this. Because I think this is coming out like on a Sunday or something. So thank you very much for tuning in that portion. Now I'm going to talk about the show. So if you want to continue, if you like what I rant about, if you want to hear what the show is going to be about, please continue to listen, because it's not going to be exactly like I just did there. That is kind of a teaser, you know? You see a trailer for a movie, you get the idea of it, but that it's not spelling it out. It's not going to show everything unless you're like the BVS second trailer with Doomsday. Yeesh. So, actually, I think it was the third trailer. I could be wrong. But either way, it's late. And that's why another reason why I am doing this podcast. So, where to start? So, there's many reasons why this show is happening. One, because I think it's a good idea. I like talking about comic books. I like talking about comic films, as you've seen. And this is inside baseball. So like I said, if you're new and you liked what I just talked about and you like me, you're going to like this. And if you're a fan of GeekVerse and all the shows in general, you'll like this because it's a little insider to what's going on. And like I said, the origin story of the superhero news roundup. So we started Dynamic Duo 2015. It was me, Liam, and then Kyle was our guest star, and he was on lots of times, but he was the guest star. It was me and Liam. We had a very, very good vibe, and I think the show was becoming a very, very well-oiled machine up until Liam left. And that was just not to say anything bad against anybody else, but I think it was just we were finding our groove, we knew what to talk about, we knew how to say certain things, and we had a good dynamic of I was the host, I read out headlines, I give your little punch-up notes of, hey, this is the backstory of this, what do you think? I set up a question, I do the transitions, yada, yada, yada. Liam was our inside guy. He was the guy that reads comics, he was the guy that is deep into film knowledge and comic film knowledge, so I could say, hey, do you think Simon Kinberg is a good choice to direct X-Men? And he would go, nope, or yes. He knows that person. A lot of people don't, like a Kyle. Kyle was great because he was our mainstream view. He was the person that likes comic films and he reads comic books. He's getting into the past few years, but that kind of like one tier fan. Like there's the tier 1 and the tier 2, and he's just starting. And I thought that we had a great chemistry. And we still did, but so Liam had to go. He left for a job. He moved to Vancouver. He's having a great life. We just had him on Dynamic Duo this past week. Listen to it. It's a great episode. I love having him on when all three of us can sit down and talk. He left. And the biggest thing for me was trying to find the right vibe of the show. At the same time Kirkland left, GeekVerse. Kyle filled his spot. We thought Kyle had a couple tried episodes. It worked. He gelled with us. Same thing, he was more mainstream. So when we talk about gaming or movies, he brought in a different aspect. And at the end of the day, he's our friend. And this podcast crew is about being friends because we ain't making money. So we kind of have to like each other to be sitting down in a room talking for hours upon hours, days upon days for the past 2 years. So Kyle was in GeekVerse. So I'll give you a few little scenarios. And like I said, this is very inside baseball. No more comic book talk. This is going to be about the future of this show and how it started. And I'm excited to share this with you because with thought bubbles and anything else, I like talking directly to people because I even saw with Dynamic Duo when we first started, we had a different fan base. There was people sending questions just directly to Liam or myself or Kyle asking us a question instead of GeekVerse. So I know there's certain people that listen to that show more than this, or same thing GeekVerse. I digress. So Kyle's on GeekVerse. Me and Kyle tried to do the two-man news. And what we do is usually Dynamic Duo it started at first we were just reviewing movies. Kind of took that away because we didn't want too many reviews out there. So we started doing news and specials. The specials with Dynamic Duo are still sticking around. The specials are probably going to be 2 to 4 months, somewhere in there. They're going to be when we do top 10 lists, a best of, a prediction, something, or like a review, even like a Defenders, if that's not a GeekVerse episode. So they're going to be for special occasions for reasons I'm about to list. The news, for me, worked because I thought me and Kyle still had good chemistry, but it still felt like something wasn't clicking. And the reason I started Dynamic Duos with GeekVerse, I always felt for me something was missing. I wanted to talk about comics and get about them in depth. With me and Kyle, we were still doing that, but it was into the sense of, you're watching this, you're going to not believe me. I don't love talking 100% of the time unless it's just me. On GeekVerse, I like being able to, I do the same thing. I kind of do the hosting thing because I usually round up news and talk to people like, oh, what are we talking about? I'll say a headline and I'll get the whole rundown. I say, hey, Jessica, what do you think about this? It'll go around the entire room and then it will come back to me. What I found happening was Kyle was still the good mainstream source and I was the host. Liam as like our, deep guy, which I am too, was gone, so I took that over. Like, I know just as much film as Liam, just as much comic books, maybe a little more, just a little bit more, but I had to take that over. So it was this thing of, I introduce a story, throw it to Kyle, and then it comes right back to me, and I'm ranting, and I'm talking, and I didn't like that, because I never wanted to feel, and that's why this cast is primarily going to be just me, this podcast. I might have a guest on every once in a while, but it's just going to be me, because I always hate that when it's like, I know a lot about this topic, Kyle's going to give me his, his 30-second to a minute pitch of, hey, this is what I think about that, and then I'm going to talk about for 10 minutes. When Liam was talking for 10 minutes, it didn't matter, because we could say other stuff, and I was sitting back, I wasn't talking again. But I hate that when I'm sitting there, I've thrown out the host thing, and then I'm talking to Kyle about, Simon Kingberg or this Venom situation, and he's just sitting there listening, going, yeah, and he's already added his 2 cents, and I didn't like that. I don't like when that happens for any situation. I like educating people, but I don't want to feel like it's just me being a teacher to Kyle the whole episode, and that's where it felt like sometimes where I was just like, that's tough that way, and I don't want the viewers to just feel like I'm dominating the podcast, because I do dominate a lot of podcasts, but I try to spread it out. I try to always, if I'm about to butt in, like, okay, just wait, let that person finish talk, like, that's something I've worked on, but that's something with Dynamic Duo couldn't do. So we tried different things. I had Jeff on, who's a friend of ours. I think he had more comic knowledge, but he was much more like Kyle, where Kyle's a very laid-back podcaster. So, one, it was their personalities were similar in that sense of how they delivered and talked about things, and 2, he just lives in a different area, so it was harder to correlate. It was tough. Like, I always hate when, like, hey, can you make it this Friday? Oh, no, man, that sucks. I really want to be on it. But it's like, oh, we got to get this out. Like, we've said we're going to put an episode out this week. Like, I'm sorry. That always felt shitty. We tried different people. Dylan was on, and Dylan was the same thing as Kyle, where he's just getting into comics and comic films. So it was the same thing of, I never felt there was a balance when we were doing the superhero news roundup. They are fun because we always have fun. I don't regret doing any of those casts because we have a good time. But it was still like something was a little bit missing. The good water break. And I wanted to get fully in depth without, like I said, seeming like I'm talking down to somebody or they're just listening along. Because if you're listening to this or you listen to the Venom thing, there's I'd say 95% chance that you're deep into comics like myself, maybe even deeper. And I'm telling you things that you already know and you're just here for my opinion. If I'm teaching you things, that's great. But I think most of you are here because you know what's going on. So trying certain things out like that. And the other thing was where we found, even when me and Kyle would have good casts, he's on GeekVerse now. GeekVerse has changed a lot in the past 2 years, and it has become very comic oriented, and it's because of 2 things. One, to be honest, those get the most clicks and views for us. At the end of the day, we want to grow our channel. Those topics, those main headlines, that's what people flock to. When I put a video game one up or even a movie one, not as much. The only other one would be Star Wars, to be honest, and it's just because of the hot things right now. But when I put up, other than E3 gaming ones, it's like, oh yeah, like it gets its boost. We usually get our regular fans, but the comic book ones are the ones that do better. So there was that sense of I didn't want to fully end the superhero news roundup, but Kyle is on GeekVerse. So when I was talking about GeekVerse has changed, we do a lot of those topics. And 2, he's more of a mainstream guy. He reads more comics and he knows more about the other GeekVerse people because of him knowing Liam and I, and like I said, reading comics. He's watched the animated shows and things like that. But there's a lot of news that we are talking about on GeekVerse that we wouldn't have talked about the first year why I started Dynamic Duo. We weren't talking about comic book news as much as I wanted, which was fine. That's why I started the spin-off show. Now they have more knowledge. Same thing, because they know me. They've been seeing these movies. They've been more interested in them. So it's this thing of me and Kyle, and you can go back to Rant, Rave, Repeat. We talked about it together that I didn't want to just feel like we're recycling the same thing over and over and talking about what we kind of already talked about on GeekVerse, or just adding a little bit more, because to me that kind of waters it down. And for a while it was this thing of like, maybe I'm just going to end the superhero news roundup show. That's going to go away and we're just going to do specials. But this is where I kind of had an idea of like, what if I kind of took that and made it my own thing? Because I can get in now, like I said, in depth, in deep with people that, if you're new to this and like on a Kyle level, you can listen to this, because I am supposed to be talking to you. I'm supposed to be, telling you all this stuff. But if you're on my level or higher up, you understand all this stuff and you're just here for my thoughts and my opinions, like I said already. So it's something that I don't have to critique. I don't have to go, oh, Kingberg is this, and this person. I will rattle that off very quickly for you, like, oh, he produced this, just to give you some facts. But, with a Kyle, with the GeekVerse people, I have to explain it. This, I can just hot rod, go right off the cuff. I can talk, I can rant like I've been doing already tonight. So that was something that I was missing a little, because I did have that with Liam, because we talk about, who's Crispin Glover. A lot of people might not know that on the podcast, so they might have to look it up. So I want to do that because I wanted to do more in-depth comic book talks like we did. I want to do things where I just spent, I think, like 40 minutes talking about the Venom situation, because I had a lot to say about it. And I'm tired, and maybe you can hear it in my voice, but I wanted to do that. And the other reason is to go into the tiredness is we've talked about Rant and Repeat a little. I haven't talked about on GeekVerse yet. There will be an announcement because I'm taking a little bit of time off. I am expecting my first child. Yes, thank you very much. Lots of fun, I'm sure, will ensue. But the thing is, it's my first child. I don't know what that's going to partake time-wise. I don't know how that's going to affect my life and the podcast life. They're a great group. They're going to kill it. They're going to be fine without me. It's a sense of two things. One, I just want to talk about news a bit quicker sometimes. So the superhero news roundup, even when I go back to GeekVerse full time, I'm not even saying my break won't be that much, because I don't know. I could get the child, we could have a good flow, and then it's good to go. It might be only a couple weeks I'm off GeekVerse. I would love to, but I don't want to say, hey, I'm trying to get back in 2 weeks. I want them to be able, and they're capable, but we're setting up the plans right now for them to take over, do everything, and they can go off and do the show without me, and I can sit back and watch the well-oiled machine and watch from home as a fan and not have to worry about getting back. So that's why I'm not putting a time date on it, but it could just be a few weeks, and then, okay, I'm back in the saddle. But for that, even then, that's why if I'm back in the saddle, I still want this show to exist, because that's what I'm going to get into, what this show will be about. And I'm about to talk about the show in a second. I know I'm talking a lot, but you know what? This is kind of like a rant, rave, repeat version. I thought about doing a separate podcast, but you know what? If you're a fan of this, if you're people like our Patreon subscribers, or people that have contacted me through Facebook, I think you want to hear this so you can understand, because Dynamic Duo was our second biggest show. Stats-wise, that always pulled in good ratings. Sometimes it pulled in just as much ratings as GeekVerse. So it's something that I want to talk about. Like, I'm cutting a part of it away, but I'm not throwing it away. I'm just like skin grafting it. I'm growing a new set of skin for it. So the superhero news roundup is a stable that I want to start, and it's something that's going to be my baby, and I have segments and things planned out that I think are going to be great for it. And it's just stuff that, hey, I don't know why my mouth just clicked. I need some water. It's just stuff like, hey, we get very busy, and with E3 and reviews, there's more pressing content sometimes, or we just can't get together to do news. So we're putting out a pre-recorded episode, or we're doing something that is a fun episode that's just kind of a gimmick, like our GeekVerse is something that is a content provider, but it's not touching upon the news, the current news. When the Zack Snyder, Joss Whedon situation happened, I wanted to talk about a lot. I think it's happened about a month ago, 3 weeks ago. I had a lot to say and a lot to get out there. We didn't get to talk about it till last week because we've just been so busy as far as personal lives, and because of E3 and things come up, movies come up, and those are more pressing because reviews do very well for us. So I get it, but it's the thing of I want to be able to jump on the horn, and it's something that I don't feel if I talk about it in, let's say if I talk about Flash announces a director tomorrow, I talk about it on this, and I'm not on GeekVerse, I don't think it ruins that, because GeekVerse, it has its main topics, but usually there's like 20 to 30, okay, sorry, let's go 15 to 25 different topics between everyone that brings up. And there's usually 4 to 5 people. So you can watch me and like, oh, this is why I think this Flash director is great. I don't think that hurts GeekVerse because you get to hear all these other opinions, and plus, where the Venom thing for me was that's a whole show. For them, that'll be a segment like we do when I'm on there as well. It's a segment we talk about maybe 5 to 15 minutes, and then we move on to the next story. Mine is more about getting right indefinite, not to be like fucking Nancy Drew, just give a little bit of the Travis in-depth take. I don't know. I need to think of an actual fucking name. It's late. It's midnight. But anyways, so this is going into the point of me referring to it being midnight is, so the first point of want to get to some news quicker. And it's not going to be some news I may want to get to like when this Han Solo business happened, but primarily the news that I want to get into on this that would drop a video right away is stuff that only I'm going to know about. Gotham City Sirens, I can tell them the idea of it, GeekVerse, but they're not going to get the sense, they're not going to get to know the characters, because I just have that background with those characters. I have that lifelong experience of reading those comics, watching those shows. So that's what I mean with the Joss Whedon, Zack Snyder situation. I'd like to, for a situation like that, get on there, talk about it, and then talk about it again with GeekVerse, but mine will be much more in-depth, where the other is a bit more opinion-based and fun-based, honestly. As you can see, this is much more pedal to the metal, getting to the point. I ramble a lot, but talking about just one subject and hitting it over and over and looking from every angle, where GeekVerse is very fun, laid back. It's like hanging out with your friends, and I love that vibe, and I'll miss that when I'm gone for a bit, but this is why I want this show, because this will be a little bit different. The other thing is, and tying into that, it's with this, why I'm doing it alone is because I could have a breaking news thing. With the old show, had to get in touch with Liam, had to get in touch with Kyle, had to get in touch with Dylan. GeekVerse is the same thing. Hey, this is a big thing. And I'd love to, like with trailer reactions, get everyone together and do a trailer reaction. It'd be more fun. But I know at 6 a.m. when the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer drops, or at midnight, I know it's going to be a little bit tough to get everyone together. So for me, I won't have to worry about that. I can just do my own thing and get the news out there as quickly as possible. And honestly, I can do it at times like this. My plan is not to always do it at midnight. It was a long day. I planned to do this earlier. But with me having a child, this is something where, hey, this news broke at around 9. Whatever, let's say they announced who's playing Carnage. I can, do some stuff, and then at midnight, hey, I finally have some time, or 11, have some time, sit down with the camera, the mic, talk about the Carnage, Venom, whatever movie, post it in the middle of the night, post it in the morning, and that's done, and that's a topic out there, and it's for our fans that are, we're luckily growing, which is a good thing. People listen to people in our basement. It's great somehow, so I thank you for that, but I can get out to the people that want to hear from me, and hopefully will latch on and want to hear from me that are new, like a symbiote, like attached to me and take my powers. No idea. But I can just sit down and not have to worry about scheduling and doing this and doing that. I can sit down, do a podcast, because who knows, I could be very tired. I could be up with a child. I could be, hey, the child's finally asleep. I'm up, let's do this podcast, it's gonna be done. And then I don't gotta worry about anything else. So it's a collection of all the stuff put together. The actual show, the Superhero News Roundup show, what I envision for it is something that is a bit unique. And the good thing is, I think with the fans we have so far, like a lot of content, and I hope you do, because we have, I think, 10 shows now. So if you're the people that have stuck with us, that have subscribed, whether it's our podcast services or our YouTube ones, and if you're just subscribing, know that we hit you with a lot of content. That's our goal, is to have a show that's almost for everybody. We can't have a fucking Bachelorette recap show, because none of us watch that. But in the geek community, we tried to have different ideas, like a Netflix unveil, like a Spider-Man retrospective, So we provide a lot of content. This show will do that in a sense. So the way, let's say there's, which way do I want to approach? Let's say there's no breaking news. So as you've seen, GeekVerse Thought Bubbles, that was my idea of, when I was last year, my job allows me for certain months, I get time off. and I got paid time off. So I was sitting at home and it's like, I may as well do some like videos like this and help grow the channel and just stuff when they announced Gotham City Sirens. Like, I want to talk about this. Like, I want to talk to fans about it. So that's how it started, and that's how this show is kind of my plan is, it's weird, but it's kind of this combination of GeekVerse Thought Bubbles, Spider-Man Retrospective, the comic book roundup that I did a long time ago, which fans really liked. I actually had people like that was funny. There was like rant, rave, repeat, and that actually got like the most questions for a while until GeekVerse grew. It was just like, because it was hardcore comic fans, and I got feedback on that, and it was nice. I had to stop it because I just didn't have time to read comics. But that and Dynamic Duo, so it's like this 4 hybrid of a show. So let's say no breaking news. My plan would be, as of right now, to probably do about 2 episodes a month. One near the beginning, one near the end. You're going to have to stick with me if you like this content, if you like myself. This is not a cheap plug. It is, but it's not intended to be. The best thing to do is subscribe to the podcasters or YouTube, because for the first little while, and especially with a child coming in July, there's not going to be set dates. There's going to be times like this where, hey, I finally have time to sit down and record this. Let's go. Like, this is being recorded a few days earlier. Unless you're for our Patreon subscribers, you're getting this the day it was recorded. But everyone else, like, this is the time I have. The next few days, like, we're recording Netflix and Fail. We're recording this. We're recording that. I have a dinner. I have a thing. Like, so I won't have set times like GeekVerses. Usually once a week. Like, it's every Thursday night, Friday morning, you know, things like that. It's not going to be set. It could be the second week of the month. It could be the first week of the month. I don't know. But that's the plan, is to do the same thing like the superhero news roundup was. There's going to be a main topic most of the time, and then there's going to be a bunch of news. And that's how we used to do it, where I would collect, we used to do 1 episode a month. I would collect all the biggest news of that past month and give our thoughts about it, because we weren't doing weekly shows, but I wanted Liam and Kyle's word out there. And even to talk about my stuff too, was some stuff that was more inside baseball for comic book fans. So that's what this show will be. That it's going to keep that essence of, hey, I'm going to collect news from the past 2 weeks and talk about it. So if there's no big breaking news like this Venom thing, then okay, that's the show. I'll collect the news, talk about it, and then we'll go along. I'll talk about the segments in a second. If there is breaking news, what I'm going to do is, because YouTube is a bit different, you can like YouTube subscribers are more used to getting a bunch more videos, because we've made videos that like the GeekVerse Gauntlet or Taylor's weird side projects sometimes, like videos that are just going to be for the channel, then they can't go to the podcast subscriptions or whatnot. So the channel, so they're just video oriented. So the YouTube subscribers are more used to getting more content there, and there is more content for YouTube just because there's a video based program or site. So let's say, take for example Ben Affleck dropping out of Batman. Let's say if that were to happen while I'm doing this superhero news roundup, or like while the show has started, I would do a breaking news, and that's where the thought bubbles come in. I'll jump on the horn, I'll talk about this, talk about that. That will not be the official episode. So let's say it's the second week the episode's coming out, and there's a bunch breaking news. What I would do is I would do the superhero news roundup. This is for YouTube. I would do the superhero news roundup for news I hadn't talked about throughout the week, like a little stuff, like, oh, this actor joined Infinity War, and talk about it, and all the news thing, and that's it. And you'll have your breaking news there, and they're kind of be like episodes that are kind of spin off, or like like if it's episode 2, it's a 2.1, 2.2, like they're all connected to this week in news. For the podcast, it's going to be, so even for YouTube, you're going to get a superhero news roundup. There could be breaking news, but those will be separate videos. But the superhero news roundup will happen, like I said, roughly 2 months is what I'm thinking, 2 times a month. For the podcast, I'm going to do, you'll get that episode, you'll get the superhero news roundup. For breaking news ones, unless it's super outdated, if something happened, I will add those to either the beginning of the podcast or the end, so you will not miss out on that. If you're dying, if a superhero news story breaks and you really want to hear my thoughts, head over to YouTube. I just don't want to pollute. No, I just don't want to jam up the podcast, because the other guys will be doing their shows. We have other spin-off shows. So on YouTube, you'll get multiple videos of it if there's a bunch of news. If not, you'll just get the one video like podcast. podcast, you'll get the one news thing, and you'll get all the videos put together in there. If there's no videos, then you just get that like the same episode YouTube does. But I will add that. So I don't want people on podcasts to feel like, hey, am I missing out? Because we have the biggest fans. Those are our most subscribers on SoundCloud and iTunes. So I don't want you to feel like you're missing out. If you want a little bit earlier, then yeah, head over to YouTube if it's something you really want to hear. If not, it's going to be sitting there for you on a Sunday or a Monday for you to listen, and you will get to hear all that stuff, okay? So that is the plan for that with the show. If you have any questions, let me know. Segments-wise, I'm looking into a few things. I'm thinking of, like, what do I want to do with the show? Because I do want to be a bit different in segments that I can do. One, I don't know if it's going to be right away, but I do plan to incorporate comic book reviews again and talk more about comic book news. And that's another thing. I'm not talking about comic film news, comic book news. I wanted so bad to talk about Catwoman and Batman finally fucking getting engaged. I did not have the time. I did not have a show like this. I had to wait for a dynamic duo. And we didn't even talk about it then because we were running short or long on time. Or short on time, whatever it is. So I want to talk about more comic news, and I want to get back into reviewing ones. And whether that's you guys telling me which ones you want to read, or me saying, hey, I'm going to read this, read it in 2 weeks, I'm going to review it and we'll talk about it. So like Batman All-Star number 11 just started, or like the new arc for Snack Snyder. Good old Snack Snyder. Yeah. Snack Snyder. So no, for Scott Snyder's newest All-Star run, have some time to talk about that. So that's where the comic roundup thing comes in. I want to bring that in and do more comic book reviews. I think what will end up happening is you'll always have the comic book roundup news or just the comic news, and more the ending of the show will be the segment. So if you just want to stop by and hear the news or hear my opinions on the news, you can, and you can bow out for the segments. I think segments will be different ones on episodes. So like the comic book reviews will probably be on one episode, like the second episode of the month, and the first one will have a different segment. Another segment that I'm working out and I'm gonna do that it's more that I'm just really excited for, and I think you guys will get a kick out of it. This is one you may want to go to YouTube because it's going to be more of a video version of it, but because I have to listen to them for editing purposes, for our Spider-Man retrospective, which you should check out if you love Spider-Man, if you're hyped about Spider-Man Homecoming, we're reviewing the animated series from 1994, every single episode. We just reviewed all of Sam Raimi's movies, and we're about to review Amazing Spider-Man 2. Fun podcasts. So we were talking about that, and I was talking about, Dylan was bugging me how I remembered that shot of when Tobey in the third Spider-Man gets hit in midair from New Goblin, and his ring comes flying out, and he does the swipe, and he misses it. I'm like, oh, that they use in the trailer a lot, and Dylan was just like, oh, you nerd, like you would know that's in the trailer, So I had an idea of what happened if trailer reactions are, a thing that happens right now. They're not necessarily going to be reactions. That's where the Spider-Man retrospective thing comes in. They're going to be kind of like trailer reaction retrospectives. And I thought about, I want to go back and watch movie trailers for comic book films that are, my goal would be that are older than 5 years, and see what did they show, was there footage in there that didn't make it? What was the tone of those trailers? Did they show too much? Did they show too little? Is this a perfect trailer? Is this not even remotely what we got? Is it just a lame trailer? Because this is why I'd like to do it on cast, and I probably will for Infinity War. I think I saw Avengers trailer like last year, and I was like, this is kind of like a lame trailer. Other than the hype of seeing them together, once that's taken away, this trailer is very basic and bare bones. So that's a segment I really want to do, and I think I'm going to. And that's what I mean. Each segment would be on a different show. And I think I'll probably just start with a few segments because the news usually takes a lot of time. But that's something I'm looking very forward to watching. Okay, I'm gonna watch all the original Spider-Man trailers, and I want to see how they pan out. And I want to talk. And I'll probably pick trailers that are close to films that are coming out. So if there's a new Fantastic Four, watch the Fantastic Four trailer. And see like, hey, this is a good trailer, even though this is a shit movie. Like, this is a good trailer. So if there's things you'd like me to try out, or things you have some ideas, let me know how you feel with those segments, because that is just like a, I hope some people watch, of course, but that's just a personal thing where it's like, I think that would be a lot of fun to go back and watch some trailers. So yeah, that's about it. I'm very excited for this show. I'm excited to take on a new show. There's With Dynamic Duo going 2 to 4 in months, it frees up some of my time. GeekVerse Gauntlet is winding down. That'll be done in October. I don't know if there's going to be a second season for multiple reasons. There's a lot of juggling. It's a fun show, but it, lots of reasons where I don't know if a second season's going to happen right away. So it's this thing of like, okay, and Gauntlet for me, I'm very proud of. I love Gauntlet. It's some of my best work here because it's me getting to sit down with a computer and edit and do stories, and I write and produce that, and other than the game, which is all the gaming's all real, lots of that is ideas that I'm thinking of and I'm executing, and that takes up a lot of time though. Honestly, matching commentary tracks with gameplay, with video and entrances, all that takes up a lot of time. And even Dynamic Duo with the news, that took up at least 2 to 3 hours of a day, so, that day. So when it all piles up and that gets taken away, okay, news is gone for Dynamic Duo, Gauntlet's gonna be gone. This is kind of gonna fill a slot, and I'm excited because, like I said, those are just a few segments. I have a couple ideas. I don't want to announce any segments or anything until I'm 100% on. I've thought about maybe doing some specials that are video edited of me narrating them and talking about certain, I don't want to spoil topics, but things that are not like this, things that are not free form, things that are scripted, things that are narrated, things that you see, you sit down and watch. I don't know how that worked for podcast versions. That's what I mean. So there's some things bouncing around, but I'm very excited for the show. I hope my ranting didn't bore you, and if it did, I guess you're probably not even listening to this. I'm just ranting and rambling, but I want people, if anybody asks me, because there's people that ask me questions about certain shows or whatnot. I got that one question one time, what happened to the comic book show? That was really cool. So this is a podcast where it's more for the future, for people that ask me, hey, why is this show like this? Or hey, is Dynamic Duo do news? Or why don't you and Kyle do news? Or yada yada yada. Why aren't you on GeekVerse right now? I could say, hey, go back and listen to the origin episode, or issue 1, whatever I'm going to be calling it. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. I'm very excited for the future. I'm very excited for just talk about news and get into the in-depth again. I'm very excited. Let me know, like I said, what did you think about the news portion? What do you think about this? What do you think about the new show? I thank you very much for indulging me. I am still surprised that we have the amount of listeners you do. We have, I think, a little bit average, just above 500, and we're growing. But at the end of the day, even if we don't grow, it's pretty great that, that amount of people just listen to a schmuck like me, I thank you for that, and I don't take that lightly, and my goal is to make this show something that I'm proud of and that the channel can be proud of, and something that can help us grow, and even if it doesn't help us grow, something that's just good content for you guys that are already here. So I thank you very much. I'm very excited. This is just kind of, like I said, the teaser trailer. It's episode 1, issue 1 official, but really this is just the calm before the storm. I'm very excited to start the show. I'm very excited to get cracking. I thank you for tuning in. I promise you, and I promise you very, very much, it'll not be boring. You're going to love some stuff. You're going to hate some stuff. Maybe you're going to hate me sometimes when I talk about stuff. But you know what? It's not going to be boring. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a good one. Oh, water.